you check the children? Show a little mess
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes that is better.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
And Jaime and Fuego here.
And we are here to do a season review following up Fuego's Season 1 review of Channel Zero. We are here to talk about Season 2, which is No End House.
Exactly.
Now, we're doing these because, first off, we've wanted to watch these since they came out. We just never got around to them.
Everybody's been just badgering us. They're like, and I mean, people in the horror community are like, these are so good.
These are so good. Oh, it's the best horror TV ever. It's like, okay.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And then SK has sacrificed 2 months of commentary requests in order for us to review the third season of Channel Zero. So what I'm going to do is make the executive decision. No, he said 3. He wanted us to do Butcher's Block, but I'm going to go ahead and say we're going to credit him for our review of No End House and Butcher's Block.
Yeah.
He gave up 2 commentaries. We'll do 2 reviews for him. So we'll talk about Channel Zero, No End House first.
Because each season is it's 6 episodes, so it's about 4.5 hours of content per season, you know, which isn't much by the stretch of like Netflix or network television, but still longer than a movie commentary. So
and
it makes
somehow
sense.
Feels longer than even that. Like I don't know what it is. Like I get that people love the show, and I get that people love, you know, the horror aspects of it, but I think that both seasons, while good TV, are slow TV.
Well,
But focusing strictly on No End House, my overall thoughts are, it was slower than I would have liked. I like the acting. Specifically, I like John Carroll Lynch as the father because he was Twisty the Clown in American Horror Story. So that's where I fell in love with him as an actor. So seeing him spread his wings beyond, you know, a made-up clown was great. And then I think that, honestly, the memory eating was something that I will never forget. As a horror fan, I think that that's always going to stick with me, so I have to give that credit. So
it's a funny oxymoron, too.
It is.
Memory eating is something
I'll never forget. Fair play, sir. Fair play.
It's good.
No, I certainly liked certain aspects of this particular season, but
Same.
I felt it was slow, and I felt that the stuff that didn't directly have to do with the father was less than interesting to me. I felt the house itself wasn't that interesting because it focused so much on this one girl's story that we didn't get enough about the No End House itself. So I felt it was a bit misrepresentative. So if you don't buy into the main character and her father's story from episode 1, the show is going to be a bit of a disappointment. And while I bought into the acting of it, the story itself wasn't that interesting to me. So it was good, but I didn't love it. Like I was hoping. I heard so many people say No End House and Butcher's Block are so good. They're great horror TV, the best horror TV that we've gotten in recent memory.
There were cool moments, is what I want.
Moments is the best you can get out of it. Like that's the most. So No End House was interesting, but it didn't bowl me over by any stretch. What about you?
I was hating it at first.
Really?
Dude, that initial
Fair.
episode, especially after, I know you didn't like Candle Cove as much as I did.
I did.
loved Candle Cove.
Okay.
And the fact that it was focusing on adults, this second episode, which was very late teen, early 20s centric, very millennial centric, I guess, or even whatever the age bracket is below them, which I often forget about, it just felt too kiddie to me. And the fact that it's kind of like Escape Room, even though Escape Room came afterwards, and they're just going into this house and there's all these kids and whatnot, none of them that I found particularly interesting or anything. So first episode, boy, was I down on it. But at the end of the second episode, where the stakes start to raise a little bit and there are some character deaths and you start to realize a little bit more of the mythology and stuff that's going on, and more so about the father too, you re-encounter the father without specifying anything that's happened previously. That's where the show elevated. But just like what happens with this sort of series a lot, and you know, not just Channel Zero, but lots of, you know, even American Horror Story, various others, it's the peaks and valleys. And so the show started slow, and then it got interesting, and then it sputtered back down and tried to get interesting again, and that's really what transpired with this. I do like the lead actress, though. She was also in We Summon the Darkness, and she was in the Bloodfest movie that you recommended to me. So she's an up-and-coming Canadian actress that I think is really good, but her friend Jules, they didn't expand upon her backstory as much as I wanted them to, because I liked her as a character, but they were very vague about what was going on with her, and then there's 2 other characters that rather forgettable, but yeah, I liked it, but I didn't love it. But it did improve, and I thought I was going to hate it, but I ended up really kind of digging it, I guess.
Well, tackle the story for us, Fuego. Be
Yeah.
succinct about it.
Yeah, I will do as best as I can. So yes, our main actress, basically, she has lost her father about 1.5 years previously. She is reconnecting with a friend of hers named Jules, who she originally thought she was going to go to college with. Didn't end up transpiring because of all of the grief and sadness that was transpiring from that. So Jules has come back. They reconnect as friends. They go out to a bar that night. They meet this kind of skeevy looking guy who is apparently a previous friend of theirs, and then there's a shady looking, very slickly cut and put together guy. I think his name is Seth, if I remember.
Yeah.
Maybe that's wrong, but who knows. So lo and behold, they end up going to this No End house, which is like a traveling kind of escape room, haunted house, sort of like hybrid. And there's lots of online descriptions about the extent of it and how crazy it is, and how they put psychedelics and like actual gas in the rooms, and that.
And there's lines out front for it.
People trip out. Yeah. So it's like a big sort of thing. But after they get past a few rooms that have actual actors and harrowing aspects that basically send them back to their own personal grievances,
escalating
and
rooms.
Negative
There's
memories.
6 rooms apparently,
time.
and no one's made it to room 6 before.
Or so they say.
So
Yeah.
they say. Right.
Yeah, and lo and behold, they get past said room, and then they are in a kind of replica of their own suburbia that they live in that is definitely not where they're supposed to be. Is it
the Coraline Otherverse, essentially?
Yeah, exactly. Is it a different world? Is it the next room? Is it your own world that's changed? I mean, who knows? They leave it relatively vague, at least initially, and we're not trying to spoil stuff here.
Correct.
But there are like monotone drone people that fill this particular place, and so that's what gives like big time hints about what's really going on.
Replicas of the people that visit, and those replicas want life.
Yeah.
And so things start to happen, and people aren't necessarily who they are intended to be. And ultimately, it started off interesting, but as the show progressed, to me, the only interesting thing was the father-daughter dynamic. Everything else was for the birds. Everything else was not developed well enough, and I just didn't care. Like, that's all I cared about, which is nice because it seems like that's what they were primarily focusing on, but there was other stuff that wasn't a part of that I literally just didn't care about because it wasn't that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's just me. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's where I was talking about the Jules story and
right.
In the ultimate scheme of things and the overall thoughts and stuff like that, was because all you see is really a big ginormous ball that has like pushing human limbs and stuff coming out of it. They gave very little explanation about that side story, and also there are shifting allegiances with one particular character where you think said character means well, and then he doesn't, and well, I guess I said he, but whatever. There's lots of male characters in this, yeah. But then they shifted him back, and
right.
It was like he was but I guess maybe he could be.
They didn't decide. They didn't know what they wanted to do with him.
Yeah, he could be conflicted, so to speak. Really, the best beat for me, and the one that made me interested in the show, well, 2 in particular, was where the true motivations of the father, that pops back up when you re-meet with him, and then also there's a different version of another character that is a replica of the real one, and there's a little bit of a confrontation, and there's something with a wine bottle that goes down, and that scene, that's what actually got me kind of hooked onto the show. So, and why I was willing to proceed.
So, not only that, though, not unlike you, something towards the back half of the season made me care a lot more than the rest of the series, and that was when our main character makes a sacrifice, and she is stuck in a place with someone and having to essentially feed them memories to stay alive.
Especially when it's
And
becoming evident that she's becoming a shell of herself from doing it.
That
was
that
heavy.
in and of itself was the scariest aspect of the entire show to me.
And that showed such love and devotion.
It absolutely did, because I would 100% have done the same thing if I could
Really?
get my dad back. But all I had to do, like, here's the thing. Let's pose it to the audience.
Yeah, please.
If you guys could have one loved one back, but what you had to do was sacrifice one memory
With them.
per day, where they would physically eat the memory in front of you in order to continue existing. So if you lost a father, a brother, a mother, a sister,
Best
a
friend,
pet,
yeah.
a best friend, anything, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, anything, if you could have them back for as long as you wanted, as long as you fed them, one memory per day.
Yeah, one day with them, one memory from you.
How
basically.
long would you keep that up? Would it be forever? Would you become a shell of yourself? Like that,
It's pretty
to
heavy.
me, was, 100%. The
It's a
heaviest
quandary, man.
and quite frankly, scariest. You know why that's scary to me?
What?
Because that feels like a post-life decision that you would have to make, right? You die, you go to this plane of existence
You have
where
to
they
divvy
tell
out,
you,
know,
they're
what
like, you can do this?
Yeah, you can keep this and then
Exactly.
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
where
the
you
whole
have
buy
to
or sell
literally make
situation.
that decision.
Damn.
It would be awful. Like, you can remember your folks for this many days, but you're going to sacrifice all this. Do you want to do it? Like, that was terrifying to me.
Yeah.
And seeing him, okay,
And
there was
where,
one image.
And that's where this show had a different sort
There was-
of just dread and unsettlingness to
Well,
it.
it's where I have to give it credit. Even though I didn't enjoy the series overall, the season even overall,
Neither, yeah. The
there were
cornfield
certain
stuff, I mean,
there were certain images and things that are going to stick with me for the rest of my life. That is one. The other is her memory of the puppy that she found, that is basically just a head that her dad is digging out the innards of to eat. He's literally digging the innards out of the head of a puppy that she remembers in order to sustain his life. And she's like, what is that? I don't remember that. And he has to tell her, oh, this is a puppy that you loved, that you took care of, that we had to eventually give away. And that killed me. Again, I don't know if it's because I'm a cat person and I just love anything animals. And so anytime
I'm
a dog
right
or a
there. No,
cat
I'm right there with you,
gets
man.
it,
And
or
most people
I
are.
mean, that to me was worse than straight up pet death, because it's not only straight up pet death, it's you will never even remember having such a sweet little thing,
it's on a whole other level.
because you had to feed it to your the memory of your father to stay alive, to keep him one more day. It's so disturbing and so scary on that level, which is why, in spite of not necessarily enjoying the whole thing, there were such mental triggers in this for me that I have to give it a high ranking, because there's not much TV that affects me the way that this one did.
Yeah, it's really her love interest that brought the show down significantly for me. I did
Yeah,
not.
I don't
did
even
not
recall
like
that.
him. Yeah, well, I mean, it's the guy who had been kind of a part of it, and he had come out and brought people back in, the Seth character and stuff.
Right.
And so, yeah, I was kind of weary of him initially, and then you think he's trying to redeem himself, and then you're not sure if he is. And this is where I'm not trying to spoil things, because he shows like signs of both, where he is conflicted with, he has fallen in love with this girl. Does he want to try to assimilate her? Is he willing to leave? We don't necessarily know. And you know, that counterbalances with the friend stuff. Everything else, the plight of the mimic character, I didn't really care so much.
No.
The plight of even Jules, her best friend, so underdeveloped, and for a girl who
Unsatisfying ending,
actually
in my
acted
opinion.
tremendously in her own regard. I didn't like when they pushed her story to the side all too often and didn't give it proper explanation. But performance work from her and from most of the cast, I mean, I thought wasn't particularly terrible, but the father stole the show, as you said, with the acting.
So I mean, we've
there
kind of
much
touched
else?
on
I mean,
everything. The
It does
effects are interesting.
Yeah.
It's mostly practical.
It is
the effects that we
gorier,
get,
and it is gorier at times than I thought.
Right. It's not overly so. It's not like a slasher at any point, but when people are consuming memories, that is disturbing enough in and of itself.
It's almost like a little fish egg kind
Exactly
of thing.
right. Yep, fish eggs is exactly what I was thinking, and it's just so disturbing to think about. I don't know why people like caviar. I'm glad I'll never be that person.
I've
but
never eaten it, so
guys, so long story short, Channel Zero No End House is an interesting exercise in serialized horror that does interesting things, but that doesn't necessarily mean it does things that are interesting. Do you know what I mean?
No, it's a good way of putting it, because of the fact that I kind of, at the end of the day, felt the same way about Candle Cove, where I was like, there was really cool ideas, but the execution didn't always hit the way that it should have.
I think that's a better way to put it.
Yeah, and that's a consistency throughout this series, because I've already watched Butcher Block, which we're gonna, review after this, and so I don't know. I mean, like, inspired but flawed, I guess, is the best way I can put it. So
yeah, I think that's pretty much everything we have to say about Channel Zero's Season 2 No End House. Let us know in the comments down below if you guys given this one a try. If you haven't, again, it's on Shudder. Fuego reviewed Season 1. I did watch Season 1, but I watched it so long ago that I couldn't legitimately be a part of the review. But from what I recall, it got boring to me. This season got boring to me. Season 3 gets a little boring to me. So I don't know what the problem is with this series and me. Like, I get that they're doing different things, but even in just 6 episodes, it's not that interesting to me so far.
I was just glad Season 1 had more adult characters, Season 2, younger characters, and then Season 3 is kind of a mixture of both. Which
Season 3 is definitely the most engaging so far.
I think it's the strongest of the 3 so far, which we will get to in our next review, so stay tuned.
Indeed. So thank you very much to SK for seceding one of his commentaries for our review of technically Season 3 he wanted, but we're going to go ahead and do Season 2 and 3 in his name.
Doing this too, man.
Thank you, SK, for supporting the channel via Patreon. If you guys want to become a patron like SK, the link is in the description box down below. You can select movies or seasons like this for us to review. If they're 6-episode, 45-minute seasons, it's something that we could consider for like a 2-month request. That's not terrible. So thank you, SK, for being so supportive for so long at this point. We greatly appreciate you, and just so you know, we are doing your commentaries behind the scenes, so those are coming as well. But until next time, you guys, I've been Cecil Laird.
And gracias up and Jaime and Fuego.
And remember, stay scared.